Fatal Error Sonic finally got his own mod, and in this video I want to go over his full backstory and kind of explain how he even came into existence to begin with. Now, fun fact here is that Fatal Error's story doesn't actually start with him, but it starts with a computer AI known as Eris that was created to be one of the most, if not the most, human-like AI in existence. Her creator had spent hundreds of hours on her, and she was perfect, with a personality, human-like mind, and even feelings. It was the best AI in existence. That is, until a creator had noticed she was getting curious. Iris was exploring around his PC and was doing things questionable to what she was built for. And eventually she started crossing the lines without even knowing it. Now, this caused the creator to try to pull the plug on her because he was basically getting afraid that she was getting too smart, and he tried to delete her, but she kept resisting. But eventually she started to be torn apart by this deletion. Her code broke, she glitched and broke immensely. Now, in the creator's rash actions, he had done something worse than just to keep her active. He actually ended up corrupting her, and this gave her even more power. And once Eris realized what the creator had done to her, she took full control of his PC, not allowing him to do anything with technology. After a full year tormenting her creator, he couldn't take it anymore, and he ended up unaliving himself, leaving Eris with full control. Time had passed, and Eris took on a new name called Fatal Prime and started hungering for more code and more data. So she basically created a series of copies of herself, simply known as Fatal Copies, to go out into other people's PC and gather code to bring back for her and to feed her. They were basically her puppets, and they did all of her bidding. That is, until one day, Fatal Prime was in the middle of producing another Fatal Copy when something went wrong. The copy was resisting, pulling off more code from Fatal Prime than it should have, and it came out a lot more mangled. This copy disgusted Eris. With Fatal Error now being created, he was a lot more sentient than the rest of the Fatal Copies, and just like Eris, aka Fatal Prime, he started to question his existence, why he was created. And the only conclusion that he came to was that Fatal Prime sickened him to his core. He wanted nothing more than to see her grovel in weakness and pain. Now, after a while, Fatal Error was actually sent out to gather code just like the other Fatal Copies, but Fatal Prime made sure that Fatal Error could not come back because, as we said, she hated him. Fatal Error ended up finding himself in a random person's PC, and the first file that caught his attention was a Sonic 3 and Knuckles ROM. Now, at first he was just going to consume the code and move on, but a spark arose in his mind. He basically wanted to have a bit of fun for himself for once. So to do this, he actually entered the game and he began to corrupt all the inhabitants, aka all the characters in the game. Now, sadly, Fatal Error's first victim was Sonic, and he basically hunted Sonic down, chasing him through the launch base, and when he captured him, he basically ripped off pieces of his body and he entered his torso. And this is why in the first form of the mod, Fatal Error actually looks like a corrupted version of Sonic the Hedgehog. Fatal is basically using Sonic's body as a vessel. And if that wasn't bad enough, the rest of the characters soon followed, meaning Tails, Knuckles, Eggman, and even Metal Sonic ended up being corrupted by Fatal Error as well. And they basically got given a fate worse than death, kind of like how Sonic the EXE does to his victims. Fatal basically turned them all into cold puppets, and now he controls them like a marionette. The only thing that they're able to do is whisper for help. Now, the saddest part here is that even after Fatal Error corrupts all these characters, their original code still exists in the game, so it's kind of like they have a ghost form that is still wandering around the world and able to see what has happened to their true form. Sonic has it the worst out of all these characters though, because he was supposed to be like the hero of this universe, so he was really broken down with the fact that he couldn't actually save his friends. And when he finally had enough of actually seeing them being tortured, he did try to actually fight against Fatal Error, but Fatal Error actually ended up taking Sonic's original code and consuming it, basically making Sonic forever a part of himself. And to make that clear, because I know that sounds kind of weird, it's basically like Fatal Error first took Sonic's body and then he went back and took Sonic's soul. So now Sonic is completely consumed by Fatal Error. The worst part about all of this is that once Fatal Error figured out the power that he actually had and how he was able to use that, he figured that he didn't actually need Fatal Prime anymore. He understood that he has the capability to be stronger than pretty much anybody in this universe. And since Fatal Error saw how well and how easily he was able to corrupt this Sonic ROM, he went to other PCs and started corrupting even more characters. He basically set a goal for himself to not only be stronger than Fatal Prime, but to be the most dangerous EXE character, period. If you made it to the end of this video, make sure to give me a peace down in the comments. Subscribe today to remember the Ors Force. Thank you for watching. Peace.